Okay, welcome all to the Harwich Zoning Board of Appeals public hearing this Wednesday, September 25th, 2019. We open at 7 p.m., at least by this clock, here at the Griffin Meeting Room, Harwich Town Hall. We're going to hear the cases that are on the agenda. I've got one case that's not on the agenda, which I'll mention in a moment. We will invite the public to speak at the appropriate time on the cases. I want to ask the board members to introduce themselves, please.
Jim Hilliard.
Dean Hedderstead.
Dave Ryer.
Al Donahue.
James Armstrong. Mike Capoli.
And Shayla Delaney, Board Secretary.
Okay, I don't think, Mr. Hedderstead, it's on your
I'm all set.
agenda, but on case 2019-28, we received a request from attorney. Remember, we had continued that until October.
Right.
We received a request from Attorney Singer to continue this case again from October 30th to December 4th. This is because, you know, they're still working on the plans and they have to go back to the Conservation Commission, which they want to do first, and then they're going to meet with the Town Planning Board on December 3rd. So they will have those two meetings behind them and then come to us on December 4th. They've had to, I guess according to Attorney Singer, substantially revise the plans to meet whatever the suggestions were from the Conservation Commission. So I entertain a motion to continue case 2019-28
So moved.
to
Second.
December 4th, 19. Okay, motion, seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we will continue that case to 12-2. You may read the next case
It's
if you would
12-4,
please,
okay.
sir.
The next case, case 2019-27. It has been continued from 7/31/19, and again 8/28/19. It is Robert M. Lothrop has applied for a variance to construct a 80-foot long retaining wall within the setbacks of the application is pursuant to the Code of the Town of Harwich, Table 325, Table 2, area regulations set forth in MGL Chapter 40A, Section 10. The property is located at 51 Joseph Road, map 60, John Joseph Road, map 62, partial P13, in the RR zoning district. We have one comment from the internal departments of Harwich, and this comes from Katie Tanelia, Senior Health Advisor. And she writes, I have reviewed the application for a variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals for the project at 51 John Joseph Road. The septic system was established in 1973 and passed Title V inspection in 2015. The property is restricted to 2 bedrooms, maximum due to the environmental restrictions. Zone, I guess it's IL. IL. The Health Department has no issues with the retaining wall, provided that no fill or material is brought in. The septic system is only limited to have 36 inches maximum of cover over the septic system components. Should you require any further information, please do not hesitate to contact me. Those are the only comments we've received from the town.
Okay, we're going to have voting on this case. Mr. Hilliard, Mr. Hedderstead, me, Mr. Donahue, and Mr. Armstrong. Mr. Capoli will not vote on this particular case. Sir, if you could introduce yourself and
Yes,
who's
I'm
with you,
Robert Waldrop,
please.
I'm the owner, and, I just want to do this.
Thank you.
Prepared. And, I'm the owner. You want one of these?
Okay, thank you.
I don't know if you got one of these last time or not. concerned over, I was gonna put a fence on top of the wall.
Is this your presentation?
Yeah, we're waiting for you, Mr. Lothar. Go
Oh,
ahead.
I'm sorry.
Oh, you don't have to get up, you could just
Would you-
tell us what's going on there.
Well, I just, wanted to put that wall in so I could get back some of my property and, make it, you know, suitable for use like it was before, I moved in there, so I could, just have some more storage next to my garage and whatnot, you know?
Okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, just, there was an issue with, you know, the height of my lot is a lot higher than Kathy's yard, you know, so, but I have an engineered plan to rectify any drainage issues that may, occur, that did occur before. I had put a wall up there previously and, removed it because there was dirt against it, so it was considered a retaining wall. So I moved it out of there. And, right now it's just a slope with a fence, and, I've lost like 8 feet of my property because of that issue, because the elevations are just, you know, there's like 6-foot difference in elevation between the two properties. That was
Do you
there.
have the pictures of what they have going on now? Because Bob had tried to remedy it a few different ways. And what basically has happened here is he's gotten some engineers involved. And so they have a site plan from Jason Ellis. They have a structural plan from Dan Croto at Moran Engineering. They have a drainage plan to control the runoff from his property. So they ended up with a situation where Bob did a little bit of leveling down the side of his property. And there was runoff going into the neighbor's yard, which is still existing, I believe, at this point. He tried to do a retaining wall out of concrete blocks, and that's against the town bylaw, so it ended up that the earth had to be removed, and now there's like a double fence situation going on there. So basically, this seems like the best remedy to give the neighbor a decent-looking wall. It's gonna be made out of the newer block that they have that's stacked together. Bob has a wall made out of the same block in his front yard. I don't know if you people went by and looked at what
I
was
have,
going on. But I think it should please everyone. I know Kathy has probably some things, she's here tonight, the neighbor, that she may wanna talk about. But it does seem like a good solution to get the two properties to blend together.
Can we just check with our clerk, Shayla, have we received any of those plans?
I did not.
Which ones did you not get?
The engineer plans or the photos?
Oh, you should have.
So the last time we were here, you did get the structural wall plan from Moran, I believe.
I
But-
did, yeah. Oh, you didn't get these other structures?
But we didn't have a site plan, so since then, there's now a site plan from
Right, we
Jason
got the
Ellis.
site plan. Mhm.
Okay, well, this is basically this is from Moran Engineering. This would be,
Okay, we have that wall detail from Moran.
That's correct.
that's it.
So that addresses the fact that
We have
it's
Okay,
a
Yeah, we have
3-foot,
those.
a 3-foot tall exposed wall with
so
the,
that would control any water issues.
Yep, okay.
Okay, so there is not a separate drainage plan?
it's on that, if you look at the wall, behind the wall, there's I think a 12 by 18 stone layer at the base of the wall, and then that's in 4-inch PVC. And then there's some riser pipes that go to, I think, a 12 by 24-inch trench up at the surface. So both of those trenches have horizontal pipe, and then the upper trench will actually drop down into the lower trench.
Okay, I see.
That'll have to be probably the better septic sand under there. I don't know if it acknowledges that, but that's the way that they've designed to control the runoff.
Okay, now, looking at the site plan that you submitted, it appears to me that the bulk of the wall is on the neighbor's property, not on your
It's
property.
actually, those are the
6 inches the side of the property.
what you're looking at is those are the dimension lines, the 80 feet, but if you actually look on the corner, it's in very
That's what
small
the
print.
wall will be constructed
Wait,
of those
one at a
blocks.
time, wait a minute.
Okay,
All right,
yep.
okay. This, yeah, this is the front of the house. The wall will be constructed of these blocks.
Okay, yeah, I saw that one when I was out there.
So I understand that, but it shows the blocks are gonna be on his side or your side?
Well,
On
that's
my
what,
side, that's just a line showing the length of the length of the wall.
Oh,
If you look
okay.
at the end of that plan, it shows
It'll be
0.5
constructed
feet.
of those.
Gotcha, okay, I see it.
And what that means is that's 0.5 feet or 6 inches on Bob's property.
Okay,
Because
I
that's what the
understand.
building inspector deems as a reasonable distance to make sure there's no encroachment.
I understand.
Yeah,
Makes
so it
sense.
does, I looked at the same thing myself, it does look a little funny that the dimension lines are drawn on her property as if it's the wall, but it's not. The single line is actually the wall.
okay, so I think,
So there's, so what your plan said, there was about a 6-inch space between the wall and the lot line?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, that's
So that, Jason Ellis, who did the site plan, has been there a couple times, but he would be the one that would actually, make sure that that was located in the right spot.
Okay. Now, the water, I guess what you're talking about is rainwater primarily, and maybe some runoff from the roof.
No, my roof is, all drainage from my house goes underground.
Okay, so it's all underground, so just plain rainwater.
Plain rainwater, that's it.
And the slope is such that it goes into his property?
What happened is Bob is the one with the upper property.
It would basically
So
run
that-
down to the street if it didn't go through the soil absorption system that we have engineered first. But I'm sure it would, because that's how it's gonna be designed. If you look at the, it's almost like a septic system in a way, because it has drainage built right into it. If you look at this plan from Moran Engineering,
I got it,
okay?
So
got it.
Bob is the upper property, and so he's collecting his own water on his side of the wall is what that represents. So those trenches of gravel, like I described to you, those are on the upper side and then going down behind the back of the wall, which is all on Bob's property, so he can control his own runoff. And he's been getting excessive runoff because what he did was he cleaned the side of his property, and so it actually, at this point, does create runoff, which then ends up going over the edge down into Kathy's property, which is the neighbor. So he's trying to take responsibility of his own water, is what he's doing, and then provide a retaining wall to divide the two elevations.
So there's a pitch of some kind from your property to where it starts to rise going towards his property with the drainage there, so it stays in your lot rather than transfers to his, is what I sense you're trying to tell me.
Stays on Bob's lot, yes.
Right.
Which, rather than go towards, uncontrolled towards Kathy's lot.
It'll go into this absorption system that we've
I
designed.
see.
Which is pretty, it's pretty intense, actually. It's kind of overkill for a drainage, which most people don't even have any type of drainage on their walls like this.
Do you have anything from, I guess his name is Bob, the abutter, that,
no, the abutter's Catherine.
Pardon?
Catherine- The abutter's Catherine Holden, I believe that's her right there.
okay, all right. So we'll ask for the comments from her later. Is there any,
Oh, there it is.
is there any, there's no guarantee that this is gonna work. You haven't tried it. This is to prevent rainwater that comes in your property from washing into his. Is that the entire reason it's there?
It's, when you keep saying washing into his, it's not washing into Bob's property at all. He's the upper elevation. So Bob is the one that has water on his property right now. And what it's doing is it's running from his property to Kathy's property, which is at the lower elevation. there's not a huge distance between his garage, where he can drive down the side of his garage.
It's 20 feet.
And,
I
and
saw it today,
So
yeah.
what's happening is that the water from his upper property is headed towards her property. So the idea would be that this retaining wall, number one, minimalizes the pitch, so it's not, running uncontrollable because it's got such a degree of
It wouldn't be
slant.
aggressive, it would be all just, flat, and where it starts to go down the driveway, most of it would run off into the street, as opposed to going into her property. But with this absorption system that we've designed, this is, like I said, this is really overkill for any wall. You don't see anything like this very often.
I understand. So the slope is not your slope, it's the topography of your neighbor's yard that's causing the problem.
It's a-
It's a
yes.
combination of the both.
She's at a lower elevation. by
When
the-
when they design the houses in the neighborhood, that's how they build them. I don't know, I mean, my house is up here, hers is down here. The one next to me on the other side of me is up a little higher, and it's just the way the neighborhood was built. I mean,
So, but what I'm hearing is currently the topography is a problem from your neighbor's side as it comes down the slope and enters and does get into your property. Has it,
No, just the opposite, Dean.
No.
His property is up, and there's a very severe slope there down to the neighbor's property.
this is not what this I
No,
think.
but I mean, if you went out, I don't know, did you go out and look at it in
Yes,
the back?
I looked at it,
There was a-
yes.
There was a very severe slope from this gentleman's property, Mr. Lothrop's, down to Ms. Holden's property.
But doesn't the storm drainage catch stone top grade, isn't that on,
That's on-
facing-
That's on Bob's property.
right, so that means the slope, you've got the slope higher there than it is in your side. By the way I read this, the
Mr.
slope,
Hilliard, wait a minute, Mr. Hilliard.
What is on elevation, what is your elevation in comparison to your next door neighbor?
the difference,
Yeah,
probably 6 feet or so.
okay, so
'Cause
you,
I'm standing in my backyard, I'm eye level with the
okay,
roof.
so your neighbor is 6 feet lower than you are?
Yes.
Is that start at the property line?
Pretty much.
Okay. So if there's gonna be, if there's no wall and there's no absorption system, we have a heavy rain, that rain goes over to your neighbor.
It's,
Okay.
yes.
And in doing so, does it wash away some of your soil
Yes, and it goes into her
and
yard,
it goes into hers? Okay,
which is pretty ugly.
okay, so far, so good.
Right,
You want to put a retaining wall
right.
for what purpose?
To eliminate that whole issue.
All right, so you have an 80-foot retaining wall,
Mhm.
and the design of that is to primarily, or secondarily,
It'll totally wipe out any washout whatsoever.
and in addition to that, you're putting in a drainage system on your land, an absorption system, so
Along
that
in front of the wall, down,
the water will permeate into that
exactly,
and be directed out to the street?
into the ground.
Okay. So when you went and asked for a permit for this wall, you were denied the permit by the building inspector? And the reason he gave you was that because, why? Why did he deny your?
Because the regulations read that you cannot have a retaining wall within, how many
I
feet
think
was
it's
it?
20 feet.
20 feet.
Okay, so he determined it was a structure of sorts?
Yes.
And had to have a 20-foot setback?
Yes,
So you come to us and say, I need this wall to stop the drainage.
right. Stop the whole issue.
Your neighbor will speak for herself, but also to help my neighbor and stop it going over there.
Yes,
In order for the wall to work, it's gotta go on where the lot line is for the most part, so that,
Right.
that's where the drain is, okay? You've been told you can't do that, so you come to us and you say, I need a variance. And I need a variance because the topography of my property as opposed to my neighbor's property is 6 feet higher.
exactly.
Okay. No further questions.
All right, Mr. Hilliard, Anything further? I'm sorry, Mr. Hedersted, rather.
Okay, so I understand now why you've got the rise on the right-hand side, if you will, on her property line. I understand that. So the variance is you are requesting, instead of a 20-foot setback, you gotta go for a 6-inch setback along that length of property to prevent washout. Prevent washout on your property is what it's really gonna do.
Well, it's a combination of both, yes.
And it also saves it from going into her property,
Exactly, yep.
but additionally, it's to save yours.
Because they don't really have the room, it's not a huge lot, you know, to,
Yeah, I know, it's very small.
I'm working with a very set area, which is 20 feet.
I understand.
You know.
Okay, I don't have any further questions.
Okay, yes, you talked about the topography, that's one of the requirements, and no substantial detriment to the public good if the variance were granted. But the third requirement for a variance is that there be substantial hardship, financial or otherwise. Can you just tell us what the hardship would be if the board did not grant a variance?
Well, it's gonna be something I'm gonna have to constantly repair. If it keeps just washing out, and it's just gonna be a nuisance, you know, and this would rectify the whole thing.
And financial burden?
Yes.
Okay. Nothing further. Mr. Donahue?
I have no questions.
Mr. Armstrong?
No question.
Mr. Capoli?
No questions.
Anything further before I open it up to the public?
No.
Okay.
Like I said, I've done my homework on this, and, 'cause this is the best solution that everybody seems to think would work the best. And it's not gonna be cheap to do, I'll tell you that. If,
The material you're gonna use has no problem with the town as far as,
oh, God, no.
okay.
Okay, is there anyone in the public that would like to speak to this? Yes, ma'am, if you could come up to the podium, please. And we know who you are, but I'd like you to just introduce yourself and your address for the record.
Hi, I'm Catherine Holden.
Just before
Oh, I'm sorry.
I forgot, I'm sorry. We are being videotaped, and this will be on Channel 18 YouTube in a day or so. So
Okay.
just be aware of that. Thank you.
I'll let everyone know.
So,
Hi, I'm Catherine Holden. I'm the owner of the property at 55 John Joseph Road, which is the abutted property to the applicant, Robert Lothrop. My concern about the variance request is the drainage. 2 years ago, Mr. Lothrop had a 2-foot retaining wall at the same location. The 2-foot wall directed stormwater toward the foundation of my house and flooded my basement each rain. When the wall was removed, the flooding stopped. To address this concern, Mr. Lothrop asked his engineer to revise the plan for the new wall so that, as to provide the drainage. The revised plan is dated July 29th, 2019. If the board decides to grant the variance, I ask that it be granted under the following conditions. Number 1, that the new retaining wall will not direct stormwater to flow towards my foundation and flood my basement. And number 2, that the new retaining wall will be built in strict accord with the revised plan dated July 29th, 2019, as prepared by the Moran Engineering Associates. Mr. Lothrop has said that he intends to install a fence behind the new wall if the variance is granted. I am also concerned about the height of this fence so close to the property line and to the side windows of my home. To address this concern, Mr. Lothrop has said that he would limit the height of the new fence for 4 feet. If the board grants the variance, I ask the board to make a third condition as follows: that any fence installed behind the retaining wall would be limited to a height of 4 feet. I thank the board for considering my concerns.
could we look at your conditions since you have them written down, obviously? I mean, we're not gonna remember that. I don't think, I'm not, are you? No. Thank you.
I guess I should have run that.
That's okay, we can pass them around. Oh, this was in your letter? Oh, okay, we have this.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, it's in your letter, okay.
We haven't seen this yet?
Okay.
I showed you the picture of it.
So it's a 4-foot wall, so it's going to be
It's a 3-foot wall.
3
It's
foot.
a 3-foot wall
With
with
a
a
4-foot
4
fence.
so it's 7 feet high.
Yeah, but it's only gonna have, it's a stock, not even, it's not stockade. It's,
Did you know that? 4 foot on 3 foot.
Okay, do you want your letter back?
Yes, we could.
I'm gonna give you your letter. I'm sorry, we had that in the file.
Oh, you did, okay.
I didn't realize that's what you were reading from. Okay, let's see. Anyone else want to speak to this petition? Okay, Mr. Lothrop, what's your reaction to the conditions that's been proposed by Ms.
it's
Holden?
fine with me, everything's fine with me. I have engineered plans and have,
I didn't see.
Okay, wait, Mr. Donahue has a question.
My only question is this. I think, stand correct, the town ordinance is a 6-foot high fence on the piece, on the property.
what's that?
That, if I'm not mistaken, a fence is 6 feet high maximum in the town.
No, it can go to 7 before
Can
it
go to
needs a
7?
building permit.
Right.
Okay, all right. My only question was because the fence that's being proposed makes the actual height 7 feet high. So if that's consistent with the town's ordinances, then I stand corrected.
Yeah, that's what Dan from Moran and Jaren told me, it was 7 feet is legal
Okay.
without a permit.
The only question I had.
Okay, well, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So move.
Second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Donahue. Public hearing is now closed. We'll have some discussion. Mr. Hilliard?
I'm convinced that the petitioner has met the standard, the statutory requirement standard, particularly with respect to the issue of the financial hardship. He's going to be losing his land, she's going to be getting water, he's going to lose his land, she's going to be getting water, and other than putting a draining system that in and of itself still won't do it when you have a lot of heavy, heavy rain, so I think there's no question about that. It's a unique issue that is unique just to this parcel of land, his land, and it's the topography. There's a 6-foot variance difference between his lot and the lot next door. And I think relief can be granted without upsetting in any way the zoning bylaw that is maintaining issues of setbacks, standard side yards, and so on and so forth. So my opinion is he's met the standard for a variance.
Mr. Hedersted?
I must agree, it does meet all the requirements for a variance, and there is hardship, and therefore, I have no problem with the variance and reading into the case, the comments from the neighbors. Those will be followed, that's part of the agreement.
Yes, I agree. This is one of the very rare cases that comes before us where I think we have a legitimate justification for a variance. It's a very strict standard, but I think this case meets it. I was out there and yeah, indeed, with the topography, really dictates that something along these lines has to be done. The only concern I have is if this proves ineffective. The only other thing I could think of is you'd have to put some PVC pipes in and maybe gravel to dry sumps. It's the only other thing I can think of if this is not gonna solve the issue.
But there's no guarantees.
Right, I mean, there's no guarantee, but I guess my only concern is we approve it and Ms. Lothrop, I'm sorry, Ms.
Holden.
Holden continues to get water down does it actually go into your house or just on your property?
It was with the other retaining wall. And then he took the retaining wall off and there's two fences.
After I took the
But when he
retaining,
took the retaining wall off, the water stopped coming into my cellar.
Okay, so it's right now.
Right now, it's okay.
Okay.
yeah, because after I took the retaining wall down, I had put some trap rock in there
Right.
in a bank, and a good size, like 6-inch rock, and I did the whole bank in rock, and the water just kind of seeps
Is
its way
that gonna
through.
stay? Is that coming out?
Well, that'll get buried, but it'll stay there,
Okay.
you know? But, I mean, it depends on how far I have to dig down. I gotta make sure I got good sand in there. That's the key thing, is the sand. And there's a lot of sand around there. And then just this whole drainage system that Moran Engineering designed is, yeah, it's, you know, it's overkill.
Okay, it should work.
Oh, yeah, it'll work.
You know, respectable
What do you think?
engineering company,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
I'm sure if they designed it, it's probably
'Cause
state-of-the-art.
Yeah, because Dan knows, you know, he's good. I mean, you have the top drainage pipe, and then it'll feed down to a bottom drainage pipe, if you look at this drawing. I'm not an engineer, but, yeah, it's a really pretty intense plan.
Yeah, with the gravel underneath, that gives
Yeah.
it the ability to go down.
And it'll be sitting, and then once it goes through the gravel, it'll go through sand.
Right. No, I'm not an engineer either, but unfortunately, I've had drainage issues in the past. so
Right.
Well aware of the problems they cause. Mr. Donahue?
It appears as though you've made every effort to correct this problem, and because and just to repeat what was said here, Moran Engineering has put this together, then it looks like it may solve the problem for
I
you
believe it.
and the neighbor.
Yep, I believe it will, and it'll look nice too. You know?
I agree with the board as well, and I also think that it's very encouraging when neighbors work together for a solution that meets
Yes, I agree.
the problem, so
Yep,
that's good.
Yeah, that's a good point.
absolutely.
Unfortunately, that doesn't always happen.
Doesn't always
We've seen just the opposite, where when the board grants relief, the neighbor sues the other neighbor, notwithstanding they profess they love the neighbor. We've heard that one before, as I recall. Mr. Capoli?
Nothing further.
Okay, I will entertain a motion in this case.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, the motion is that the zoning board of appeals hereby grants a variance to construct an 80-foot-long retaining wall within the setbacks as set forth in his case 2019-27 and the supporting documentation. The findings have been done because the unique conditions that exist affecting the shape, in this case, the topography of the land, and has demonstrated the hardship and the unique conditions that cause it. The variance should be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and without nullifying or substantially degrading the intent or purpose of the zoning bylaw. The case is also based upon the fact that there has been an agreement made and that the three statements made in Catherine Holden's letter dated 31 July 2019 will be met as part of this case. And
As conditions.
as condition, as well as a condition from the zoning board from Julia, the Board of Health, regarding any particular deposits of additional soil on top of the existing septic system cannot be accommodated.
The only other thing, I'd like you to have Ms. Holden's letter made part of the decision, and we'll incorporate it.
I did.
Well, okay.
I read it into it, so it's
It'll be
part of it.
made part of the decision. Okay, I'll
Right.
take a second.
I'll second.
Mr. Capone.
Any further discussion by the board?
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
This solves everything.
Now, I
Have a
just
good
need
evening.
this. Thank you both for coming. And
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
thank you very much.
Here, you got all this?
Yes, I have that. Let's see, what's this? I want this one. What is this one here? No, that we don't want.
Yeah, that's the one we asked.
That's the one we don't want. So we got
No, it's not.
two of these, right? One of these. Her letter. I think that's everything. Yeah, that one I stamped. Okay, that should do it for that.
Okay.
Okay. Sure. Understand if you could read in our next case.
Case number 2019-32. Mark T. Hagel and Lisa T. Hagel, through their agent Thomas Moore, have applied for a special permit to create additions onto a pre-existing non-conforming single-family dwelling. The application is pursuant to the Code of Town of Harwich, Section 325-54, 325, Table 2, Area Regulations, and Section 325, Table 3, Height and Bulk Regulations set forth in MGL, Chapter 48, Section 6. The property is located at 165 Gorham Road, map 24, parcel R3-6, in the RR zoning district.
Yes, sir, if you could introduce yourself, please.
Good evening, Thomas Moore, representing Mark and Lisa Hegel, who are here behind me in the audience. Also behind me is Peter Barnard from Cape Coastal Builders. The Hegels have owned this property since 2010 and are looking to make a couple of improvements to the property. The property currently consists of a single-family dwelling and a detached garage. There's a long driveway on the right-hand side going back to the garage, swimming pool, kind of patio type of an area in the backyard. The project that we're proposing is twofold. We're doing two projects here, one to the house, the main house itself, one which consists of a proposed sunroom addition and a deck addition, which you can see on the site plan, also a dormer, second-story dormer type of an addition. The other project is to the rear of the garage, is expanding a workshop portion of the garage. We'll also be doing some renovation and alteration to the garage itself. The property is non-conforming for a couple of reasons. Front setback, right side setback, rear setback, none of those particular ones meet the required. And also, the existing site coverage is at 26.8%, where the maximum in this zone is 25%. The proposed additions to the house will meet all the required setbacks. That portion of the house does meet the setbacks. The addition to the garage will be non-conforming, but it will be less non-conforming than the existing garage that it is. It's an addition to kind of square off the back corner of the garage, but it's a little bit further away from the property line than the actual existing garage right now. They're all pretty modest type of additions. We're not adding any bedrooms. It's a sunroom, and we're expanding a bedroom upstairs. The proposed additions, again, will increase the non-conforming site coverage. It'll increase from 26.8% to 29.6%. And although that does increase the non-conforming nature of the property, we feel that, these are pretty modest additions and that they would not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than what's there right now. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Mr. Hilliard?
Thank you. I'm looking at this plan, and I'm looking at your garage. The first off, is that a road that comes down? Is there a road that comes down here?
On the back
This
side
is
of
the garage, is there, that's a road, isn't it?
It may be. I never actually haven't gone back there.
Is that a
but-
road?
Yeah, it's, actually, I think it's a private road. It's called.
Okay, okay. So my first question is, if that's a road, then, because it's on a corner, if you go on corner of two roads, your setback becomes your front setback, not your side setback. So, I'm just, you get your chance.
Jim, I drove back there, and Gorham Court is more like a road, but then when it goes behind, it's
yeah.
more like somebody's driveway.
I agree. I couldn't get into the right side, there was a car blocking, so I went down. Anyway, my question is, you have a proposed addition to the existing garage. Is that new? Is that coming closer to the sideline or not?
No.
Okay.
No, because there's, I think, yeah, because part of that garage, part of that rear section of the garage does exist.
It exists?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. because
And
is
it
ki-
exists at 18.3 and 17.9 from the side?
No, it exists at 18.1 and the 17.9, the proposed addition part of it, so.
So the proposed addition,
This piece of it exists.
Okay.
This is the addition.
this is the
part.
addition?
Yeah.
And this is where you're saying you are going to continue and expand or extend the pre-existing non-conforming structure, this being the structure? Because-
Correct.
And therefore, so you don't have to be within the 20 feet, you're encroaching on the 20 feet by whatever,
Correct.
okay?
Jim, if you look at the butter list, it's got a little better view of what Gorham Court looks like.
Yeah, well, I drove down there, that's why I was confused, because when I drove down Gorham, I saw a road. If I see a road, it means setback, front setback, not side, but, okay.
Yeah, Mike's right, I hadn't actually looked at that, but
So
on the butters map, yeah.
Yeah, so, because I live about 5, 6 houses
Oh,
down.
you do? Okay.
Yeah. Gorham Court is a small
Yeah,
path, really, and it gets you back to these,
so it's a private,
Two
so
properties
is
here.
it a driveway into
I think
someone's
it's a
house?
town road.
Seemed to be,
Because there is a house in the back.
Two.
And who owns the road, if you know?
Diane Weatherby.
Oh, it's not
And
town
is that
road?
the owner of the house in the back?
Not our road.
It's not a town road?
No, they don't plow it or anything.
Oh,
Okay, so it's owned by the owner of the house that it serves?
Two
That's
houses.
my understanding.
Okay,
It's not a
all right.
town.
But if you look at, the road doesn't actually come to the corner where the garage is, so I don't think,
Right.
I understand your question,
Yeah,
but it doesn't
okay.
come into play.
No, that's fine. If it's privately owned, it's not a road, okay.
Even if it was, the existing garage is pre-existing non-conforming right now.
Yeah,
And, yeah, so we're not getting any closer to that.
well, you're expanding it by 2 inches, or something.
No, I mean, we're actually cutting it back, by,
Well, you're
by
going from
almost a half a
18.1
foot.
at the corner to 18.3 distance, setback.
yeah, so that's further away, yeah.
Right, further away. is what
And
I
it's the
meant. Okay,
17.9 is the one that drives
Okay.
it.
all right. I have no other questions. Thank you.
Okay, I forgot to designate who's gonna vote on this case. It'll be Mr. Hilliard, Mr. Hedersted, Mr. Donahue, Mr. Armstrong, and Mr. Capoli. I will not vote on this case. Mr. Hedersted?
I have no comments other than it looks like, to me, it is, it meets the Gale case in that, and it doesn't, it's not damaging to the existing community or anything close to it. As a matter of fact, it's probably an addition to it. And consequently, is the only concern I have is, would there be substantial property, substantial traffic with trucks and so on while the construction is going on? Or is there plenty of room and it doesn't require a restriction of timing? What I'm
think there's-
concerned about is just traffic during the summertime.
Well, this hopefully is gonna occur over the winter. So, yeah, it'll be hopefully starting as soon as we can start, because I think we're slated to start as soon as we get the approvals that we need. So hopefully by the time next summer comes around, they'll be all done.
Okay, I don't have any problem.
What is the workshop used for?
Exactly that. Right now, it just uses storage space right now.
Right.
So,
But after it's expanded?
Well, it would be a workshop and whatever we need for storage.
Okay, but not for commercial use?
No.
Just hobby use?
Hobby, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Donahue?
I have no questions.
Mr. Armstrong?
Just back to the workshop, no bathrooms or anything like that? Just-
Nope, nope.
Great, thanks.
Mr. Capoli?
I agree with Mr. Hedersted. Meets the Gale case. I walk by the house 10, 20 times a day, or a week, sorry. I live just around the corner. I don't walk that much, 10, 20 times a week. I walk to the harbor twice a day, so that's, I'm sure it'll be beautiful. The house is very nice as it is now.
Okay, anyone in the public want to speak to this case? No, hearing no one, I'll take a motion to close the public hearing.
So move.
Second?
Second.
Mr. Capoli and Mr. Donahue,
Yep.
That's good.
you beat them out.
Whichever one you heard first, then.
Yep.
Who got the shot of name? Scissors, paper, stone.
Okay, wait, all in favor to close the public hearing?
Aye.
I'm not voting. Okay, opposed? All right, public hearing's closed. I'll take a motion on the case, please.
Case number 2019-32. The zoning board of appeals hereby grants to Mark T. Hagel and Lisa T. Hagel a special permit to create additions onto pre-existing non-conforming single-family dwelling. Their application was made in accordance with the Town of Harwich, Section 325-54, 325, Table 2, Area Regulations 325, Table 3, Height and Bulk Regulations set forth in MGL Chapter 38. Section 6, the property is located at 165 Gorham Road, map 24, partial R3-6, in the RR zoning district. And special permit is granted on the basis that it meets the Gale case in that there were no new nonconformities made in the reconstruction or the additions that they're planning to make, and that will be no resulting substantial detriment to the neighborhood. It is planned that the construction will be done before the beginning of next summer, so there should be no traffic concerns as far as we can specify at this time.
If you could just clarify that the additions include the garage also, not just the dwelling, because the sheet, our agenda only mentions the dwelling, but the plan shows.
Oh, well, it includes the plans,
also.
okay, the plans.
Yeah.
Which includes the garage. So when the statement is made that it, in accordance with the Gale case, in accordance with the documents submitted, it includes all of that, so, and it includes the garage.
Right, and it also meets the code
Yep.
requirements, the bylaw requirements.
Right.
A second, please.
Second.
Mr. Capoli, any discussion by the board? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Special permit granted.
Thank you very much.
These,
You want these?
Sir, you want these extra plans for your use?
You need anything from this?
No.
You got it all?
Got it all here, just gonna stamp them in. Yeah, I just noticed as you were reading, the agenda only talked about the dwelling, not the garage.
Well,
I hadn't noticed that before.
based upon the applicant's submitted of documents.
Right.
So, you know, it's covered, but you're right.
It's A and S.
You're absolutely right.
Why do we call excavation? He does a lot of
Okay.
house lifting.
I mentioned that to him, so make sure we make a point of doing that, but after he's
Oh,
ready to.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't know, did everyone have a chance to look over the minutes of our last meeting?
Yes, I did. I have no
Anybody have
comments.
any comments?
No comment.
Entertain a motion then to approve the minutes as written.
So moved.
Second, Mr. Donahue, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. I have to appear before the Board of Selectmen on November 4, so I'll need the
Thank you.
annual report. Once a year, the chairs of all the committees have to make a little report to the selectmen.
When is your?
No, wait, select board, I think
Yeah,
that's
select
what we
people?
call it now.
Yes, the select people.
So the select board members.
And what was
Yeah,
that?
they changed it at town meeting last year.
You gotta be,
Oh, we did?
You gotta be correct.
That went through, huh? Okay.
Select, oh, I
These
didn't
are
know that.
handouts. I got a package of
Okay, I
these
think I
from
remember that.
somebody.
Could you tell
Thank
me
you.
again what that date was, and so I can get them to you in
He
plenty of
said-
time?
November 4th.
Really, that soon?
Yeah,
you want one of
this year they moved
got
it
the
up.
same peer group,
Normally
is that
it's,
what you got?
um,
I think we're good.
All the
Meetings.
same.
normally it's,
Right, I sent
December.
these on.
Okay.
Yeah, this, I think it's just talking about the thing Shayla sent around.
This is it's a really good program to go to. It gives so much good information on affordable housing, standards that need to be met. I believe that there is certainly discussion in planning about subdivisions, and there are a lot of people coming forward that are curious about whether or not that means that it's going to be affordable housing. I think it would be helpful, the more board people who know what the requirements are for getting a 40B application. Certainly, people who've been through it before already understand that, but this gives some very good information about why we have to do that and the qualifications and details of that, among other things.
Who put this on?
It's now called the Lower Cape Housing Institute.
Oh,
It's,
okay.
I don't know.
It used to be called
That's, okay, so that's their, actually who it is.
With you.
Community Development Partnership, Cape
It's
CDP.
an oxymoron.
In last week's Chronicle, there was a front-page story that the selectmen are proposing to make a historic district down there in West Harwich.
yes.
But they exempted the Habitat Housing 40B that we approved. Was it
Oh.
last year we did it, I think?
Yes.
It's been 2 years now.
2 years.
2 years ago?
Yeah.
Seems like it
Been a
went
long
2 years,
time.
it went forever, yeah. But they've actually started site work, if you've been by it lately.
Oh,
They've
word?
got equipment back there, and they're leveling it, and I guess they'll start pouring, I think they're on slabs, aren't they?
I'd have to go look at the plans again,
Yes.
but I did mention to the board that there's 6 applications for building permits. They're all available for you to review
Right.
if you'd like to come into the building department to see.
You're not gonna put
I-
cellars when they got a septic problem.
I think we all looked at primarily the same thing. If you were here for that 40B process, they look like,
Yeah, I don't remember whether there were slabs or cellars, I don't remember.
Slab, I'm sure,
I
as
didn't
well.
look at these carefully
I don't
either.
recall that.
But you're welcome to come by and look at them. They have not been reviewed yet, but they're sort of right on the precipice of being reviewed and issued.
Right, if there's any kind of minor issue, they'll come back to us. We've had to do that on the
Yeah.
last 40B or 2, where the plans weren't, they had to be changed at the last minute for whatever, and they were very minor. Sure, very minor
You can't go anywhere
variances.
without 'em.
No, I can't. I think my wife walked home, but that's.
So, yeah, that project's going forward. And they have 2 other exemptions down there, and I couldn't pick them up from the newspaper account, what they are, 2 other lots.
If you have any questions, you can always get in touch with Charlene Greenhalgh. She's the planner, and she has very specific ideas, and, she knows the details of
Isn't
it.
there one,
Right.
isn't there something across the street that's got a problem?
I don't remember what it is, but it's going to the Cape Cod Commission, that project. And then there was a second one with the, well, that was the West Harwich thing, and the planning board's doing something on that. I forget what they're doing. They refused to grant them an approval not required or some such thing. There was an article in last week's Chronicle on that one, too.
It
but
was a
I didn't
long
read it.
process where, because there was a groundswell of public opinion, it was referred to the Cape Cod Commission. And then in addition, there was this recommendation about the designation of that area as a district.
Well, yeah, they were discussing sending it to the commission. Did they actually end up
Yes.
doing that? Okay. So they punted.
And again, those planning board meetings and minutes are all on the website.
Yeah.
Well, they do. Isn't, but the house that we approved, but put the new cellar underneath, is the most gorgeous renovation I've ever seen down there.
That one's, what's that, 87 Route 28? She's done a really
That's
nice
magnificent.
job.
Even the garage.
It's just awesome. It's awesome.
Yes, that's one of the nicest restorations I've seen in a long time. Beautiful restoration.
Didn't she do souvenirs or something? She makes, I think she does, she makes something. I think she's gonna, yeah.
I don't know, but she just did a great job preserving
Yeah,
that
beautiful
beautiful
property.
building.
Yeah.
Anyway,
We have 2 cases that are already in,
okay, for next
or
month?
next time, and the deadline is tomorrow, so I do expect, I know of one more, and there may be 2 more. So that will be our October 30th meeting.
And then in December, it's December 4.
No November, but a December 4th combination meeting
November, December combined to December, right?
on December 4th.
Right, I
Do
got
we
that.
meet again at the end of December? I don't remember.
No, that's why we
January.
combined it, because it was a Christmas or it was New Year's Eve or something,
Okay.
Yeah.
When is our October meeting?
October 30th.
Okay.
And you can't come in costume.
I'll
I
be
was
here.
gonna say, you
I'll
can
be
come
back
in
in town.
costume.
Mike, did you have something?
I did, I just one question or point. Usually, every time someone gets up to the table, you say, could you please introduce yourself to the board? And you didn't tonight, and I was so confused as to who that guy was.
Oh, he said he was the owner.
No, the
And-
other guy.
Oh, he
spoke
didn't say his name,
Yeah.
Moore.
No, his name is Sean Smith, and he's
Oh.
with a company called A&S. I don't know if it's A&S Construction, but he's probably.
Oh, the guy on the right?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay,
part
I'm
of the
sorry.
building. Yeah.
I thought the owner introduced him, but maybe not. Maybe I missed it.
And actually, you do it every single meeting, and
Okay, don't be afraid to say that.
I don't want to be rude.
Oh,
so
no,
I
not-
actually, and then I felt even ruder because I was whispering over here like.
No, 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 please, I mean, I'm shuffling paper, and be with my hearing. He might have introduced him, and I didn't hear him, so if not, please, ask them to introduce themselves or anything that I miss.
I
You know,
so
I
appreciated
remember less
Mr.
every day.
Armstrong's comment, though. We see so little of that, to commend people for working together, because they were really at odds with each other for quite a while. I mean, how wonderful that they both would do that.
Well, yeah, it hasn't happened lately. I remember that one, that's the one, I didn't want to mention it by name, but down there, by the Bank Street.
I actually saw him a couple of days ago, and he picked me out, and he's the nicest person, and said thank you to everyone they're still working on.
The applicant, yes, he was very nice, and I thought did a good job, and
Yeah.
it's unfortunate, but gonna have to spend money, and I think he'll prevail, but that's just my personal
one is that?
opinion.
Which one is that?
It was down on Bank Street, I don't even remember the name of the road now. It's off of Bank.
Oh, okay.
He wanted to put a second story, and the houses are all jammed in, and some of his neighbors objected, and ultimately
they
granted a
appeal
special
that?
permit, and they sued him.
Did they
Oh, I know-
appeal
I know
that
what
case?
Yeah.
The neighbors appeal?
I know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's still in litigation as far as
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
yeah.
It'll drone on for
Oh, is that
a
the one
while.
that the woman didn't want anybody looking while she's taking a while
Yes.
she's in the shower or
Oh, the
something?
outdoor
No,
shower?
sunbathing.
Sunbathing, yeah, okay. same thing.
Sunbathing,
Both.
shower.
Well, the shower, okay, outside shower too. In any event, anything further, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
Motion. So
Mr.
moved.
Capoli, second over here, I guess.
Second.
Mr. Hilliard,
second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Hearing's closed. Thank Thank you, Jack.
You're welcome.